we now have proof that intelligence wasn't the only powerful government entity that was weaponized by the Obama administration. Now, you may remember I talk about 5 forces against the president. One of them is the deep state. They weaponized the power of intelligence to use against this president. Just a few hours ago, the Department of Justice announced they reached a settlement with multiple Tea Party groups that were targeted specifically by the Obama IRS because of their political ideology. Now, the settlement includes payouts to several Tea Party groups and an official apology from the IRS, which now admits that their actions during the Obama years was, quote, wrong. You think so? Using the IRS targeting people that you don't like or agree with? Now, remember, much of this IRS weaponization occurred under the oversight of Lois Lerner, while many of these Tea Party groups were in the critical initial stages of forming a resistance to the policies of Obama. That stopped them dead in their tracks. And many of the Tea Party groups were prevented from organizing and instead were spending all their time, all their resources, all their money to combat what was persecution from a politically inspired IRS. Okay, the apology and settlement, great, but a day late and a dollar short, and Obama got a free ride in 2012 as a result. So ultimately, the Democrats got everything they wanted. The Tea Party became distracted, ultimately fractured, and President Obama was reelected for a second term in 2012. We have a lot more. We have so much new information tonight. Joining us now from the American Center for Law and Justice, and of course, one of the president's counsels, Jay Sekulow, and Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. I got so much for both of you. You, Jay, need to first take a victory lap because the ACLJ, your group where you're the chief counsel, you led this case from the IRS. They did weaponize the IRS. They did turn them against anybody that was conservative, Tea Party oriented. A big win, but Obama kind of also got what he wanted.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, it took 3.5 years of litigation to get there. Our team did a fantastic job of litigating this, and the end result is not only an acknowledgement of the wrongdoing, but also a complete change of policies. There will be an order signed by the court in the next week or 10 days. That's going to include declaratory relief, meaning that the policies will go forward and they will not be able to do what they did, which is violate the First Amendment. And, you know, whether you're right, left, or center, the idea that the government would target somebody because of the name of the organization or the political position they were espousing violates the fundamental aspects of freedom of speech, freedom of association, and we've now got an agreement with that. So it's a very good day for our clients. But, Sean, it was 3.5 years. A lot of those groups, as you know, were not able to continue to activate. And by the way, it wasn't just Tea Party groups. There were groups in that were just because of the name that they had in their organization, they were targeted for this. And it really beyond the pale, but the end result was a good settlement.
I remember in April of 2010, I was in Atlanta. It was like 25,000 people there, people all over the country, massive crowds that were energized. These groups formed. They wanted to oppose Obama's policies, and they got stopped in their tracks. So this did have a big impact.
We got a result, but you know the harm was done. There's no question about it. I'm glad the case is over. Glad it's resolved. Glad the government took the liability and the responsibility that they did for wrongdoing. But it took 3.5 years of litigation to get there. Glad we won. Glad it got resolved. Glad Attorney General Sessions signed it moved this forward. He issued a statement today. But at the end of the day, 3.5 years of litigation to do what? Defend a fundamental right under the First Amendment. Should have never happened in the first place.
All right, Greg, let's start with the laws. By the way, you're an amazing. I love the fact that you're so organized as a lawyer. Sean, here are all the laws in this case. Sean, here, you're a great partner to have on the show. We appreciate it. Laws potentially broken in the Uranium One deal. Let's put them up on the screen so our audience can understand it. Explain. Let's start there because we sold out national security.
This is huge. The first 6 statutes on the screen are the anti-corruption pay-to-play statutes. You cannot use your public office, Secretary of State, to confer a benefit to a foreign government in exchange for money. The evidence appears to be there. And because she used her charity, allegedly, that would be racketeering, which, you know, the government goes after organized crime and the mafia for that.
Okay. Now, so all of these statutes, these are real crimes. I keep saying we can't have a 2-tier justice system. We can't have one justice system for the Clintons that mishandled, destroyed, classified, top secret, special access program information, all of these issues involving the kickbacks, the paybacks, the pay to play. So the question is, how did they get away with it? And do you think they slide this time?
The Clintons are escape artists that would make Houdini proud. Whenever they are caught dangling their feet over the edge of illegality, they usually dummy up. Hillary Clinton, I'll give you an example, interviewed by the FBI, said 39 times, "I cannot recall." It was so short because she could only recall her name and date of birth. You know, she pretends like she's dumber than a bucket of hair when it serves her purpose and the brightest person in the room when it helps her.
Let's go to the dossier crimes and the scandal according to them. We'll put them up on the screen here. This dossier is getting to be a bigger, because they paid $9 million.
Right. You can't pay millions of dollars to foreign nationals because that's against the federal election laws you can see there. And you can't hide it by filing false or misleading reports. Now, I've been hearing Democrats say, oh, those are just civil penalties. They are not. The government produces a book. It's 319 pages outlining the federal election laws and all those who have been criminally prosecuted and ended up in prison.
And quickly, the laws potentially broken in the email scandal, which now, thankfully, is finally this week, they're back to this.
The Espionage Act, 2 counts which were tortured and twisted by James Comey. And then the other 2 is removing classified materials from a government building. The final one there, destroying 33,000 documents.
That's called obstruction.
Yeah.
If they were subpoenaed documents.
Right.
Yeah.
By Congress.
All right, Jay, let me go back to you.
Yep.
When you look at Uranium One, you look at the Russian dossier, here's my question and where my mind goes on this. So the dossier, they have the former MI6 guy. He's Fusion GPS. He's paying Russians for phony information. And then I've got to wonder, was that the information? Because Sarah Carter and John Solomon reported that there were FISA warrants, another warrant. I'm wondering, wow, could they have used phony Russia propaganda to get... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. If in fact the dossier was the basis upon which a FISA warrant was issued, you're talking about a whole host of legal issues that Greg will have to do another chart, because you're talking about going to a court, which is a FISA court is a court, and getting a warrant to basically eavesdrop, tap, listen in on conversations based on a document that was not only unverified, as James Comey said, by the way, and salacious and unverified, his own words, but ask this question. Why was the FBI considering paying for it at some point in this process? So that question has to be asked. And I go back to this whole concept, which is something we've been talking about for a long time, and that is, if this dossier was a political creature, which we now know it is, no question about it. It was they call it opposition research. But if Christopher Steele was utilizing Russian assets to get this information, and then, of course, it's been, as James Comey said, unverified, and they went to court to get FISA warrants, you're raising a whole host of civil liberty issues, and who knows what they did and what they said to that court.
Inadmissible in a court of law.
Well, I'd file motions to suppress the subpoenas that have been issued and the documents that were resulted as that. I would file those motions.
I can name names tonight of people that are happy. Real quick.
The FBI has become this all-powerful, renegade, deep state agency. They covered up the dossier information. They covered up the Uranium One information. Now
that includes Mueller? And that includes Rosenstein? Yeah. And that includes Comey?
Right. And Andrew Weissman. All 4 are on this Trump-Russia investigation, and they are so compromised here that they need to start answering questions before Congress.